we got I Hate Power Scaling Kinda by Orion. Let's see what he's talking about
I
here.
hate power scaling, but not in the way you might think. Power scaling, or more accurately,
I'm gonna say like power scaling, it has to happen. You just can't have an anime without power scaling. It's essential. So like if you don't like power scaling, just get used to it because you're not gonna like any type of shonen anime ever. It's just not gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to sit down and watch a shonen and find it enjoyable if you don't like power scaling. Like you might as well never touch the genre.
My Dad Can Beat Up Your Dad is a form of discussion in most anime, manga, movie, comic book, video game. You get the idea. It is a really, really nerdy endeavor that involves taking feats and statements from said media in order to find out how hard a character can hit or how tanky they are and maybe how fast they fight or travel. These stats tend to be the most important usually, but every verse is different with unique abilities, so other factors like intelligence, hacks, or equipment also have to be taken into consideration. For example, because of Gojo's Limitless, he would be a tougher matchup for, say, the Naruto verse than Sukuna, even though Gojo and Sukuna should be relative to each other. Still following along? Ultimately, I do understand the appeal of power scaling. It's a fun way to go through a fictitious series, apply real-world logic, and get real-world results. It's like watching those science channels, except, instead of watching Styropyro use 100 car batteries to generate 50,000 amps worth of electricity, you're watching Seth the Program. Hey. Oh,
Head ass.
yeah, I've been gone for a while. Let's try that again. You're watching, I don't know, No Op and Broken Ronin calculate pixels to see that Yuji's faster than Mach 400. The logic in the videos is usually sound, and, the math checks out, but I don't think these stories are meant to be looked at this way. My issue with power scaling has less to do with trying to figure out who's stronger between two different verses, say Goku versus Giorno, Goku slams by the way. Rather, it has more so to do with scaling characters within their own series, especially one as complex like Jujutsu Kaisen that also just isn't finished yet. The late Stan Lee once said this:
Who would win in a fight? Who would win in a fight if Galactus fought the Hulk? The person who'd win in a fight is the person that the scriptwriter wants to win. If I'm writing a story about the Thing from the Fantastic Four, and he gets into a big fight with Spider-Man, and millions of people out there say, who would win? Well, it depends on who I want to win if I'm writing the script.
Like, I mean, no fucking duh, buddy. No fucking duh. They're not fucking asking that. They're talking about realistically who's gonna win that fight based on their previous feats. That's what they're talking about. No fucking duh, Sherlock. I almost want to look. Look. I'm gonna be respectful because you're not here anymore. But that was the most stupidest shit I ever heard in my life.
These are fictitious characters. The writer can do whatever he wants with them. So stop asking those bonehead questions.
No.
Because
don't talk about stop asking bonehead questions. Stop making bonehead statements.
Had it with that.
Honestly, with all due respect, I think that is a load of BS, and it misses the entire point. And
I like you. You could speak bullshit for the entire rest of this video, but I already like you. Yep.
appeal of power scaling. Readers aren't stupid. Readers realize that whoever is writing whatever story is in charge, and they get to choose which character is stronger, which character wins, and ultimately that kinda sucks. Because when every author has their own idea for how strong they want a certain character or verse to be, where's the consistency? Where is that answer that we want so badly? Because of this, as far as I'm concerned, using feats, statements, stuff like this, it is the most logical and objective way to do it. In that case, I think the will of the author should just be completely thrown out the window and shouldn't be paid much attention. With that being said, however, there is some truth to what Stan is saying. Ultimately, the author does matter, but for kind of a different reason.
He matters because he's the one who created the feats. Without what that character has done in the past, who that character has defeated in the past, there would be no conversation. So that's why the author matters. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about a character that has feats already versus another character that has feats already, then the creator of the show doesn't matter. What he just said is what we're trying to say.
In the case of Jujutsu Kaisen, I think Gege Akutami has a clear vision for how strong they want their characters to be, and I don't think we need to calculate pixels to find out some of these answers. In my opinion, I think Gege has divided his characters into different categories. At the pinnacle, you have Sukuna and Gojo, standing way above everyone else. The narrative makes this clear, Gege makes this clear in fanbooks, and everyone in the show makes this clear by us just being shown how far behind they are whenever they do fight these two titans. Below them, you'd have the strong category. Special grades like Yuta, Yuki, Geto, by extension Fate Geto, special grade curse spirits like Mahito or Jogo, and then anomalies like Toji. These characters are consistently considered to be stronger by not only the narrative, but characters within the verse as well.
The thing is with this, my only problem with this is that, like, you could say this throughout any show. Most times when you argue power scaling, it's not between the same show. Now, sometimes it is. Like, I see hella debates, like fucking Itachi versus some character in Naruto, right? Now, this is where you could use that, and most of the time, those players would be on the same scale. So that's why they would have to go into power scaling. How do you argue two people on the same tier if they haven't fought yet? That's what you're missing here. That's what you're missing here. But overall, like, when you're debating like people on the same show, like, yeah, of course.
Naruto is able to completely destroy Dogon free domain, but he shits himself when Joe Goat shows up. Even though he's severely wounded, him and Nanami have the exact same thought, that Jogo is on an entirely different level to that of Dogon. Then you've got the mid to high tier characters. Characters like Yuji, Choso, Megumi, Kusakabe, Meimei, Todo. Generally, grade 1 sorcerers fit this tier, and everyone below would fall into this sort of weaker category. You know, think of Panda, Inumaki, Mai, or even just Momo. I believe that Gege has made it a point to have characters split into these categories because I think it helps him write a more coherent...
Every show, it's not just Gege. Mostly every shonen has a very obvious power scale like that in their show, where you know who the strongest are, you know who the more solid people are, you know who the weaker ones are. That's not just a Gege thing. That's a shonen thing for across the board, 9 times out of 10.
Battle shonen. Yuji is weaker and in a lower category than Hanami and would lose that fight 10 out of 10 times on his own. But with Todo's help, the two are able to overwhelm Hanami and just almost exercise him. Gege has even stated that he regrets not letting Yuji and Todo exercise Hanami during Goodwill, which makes me think that he puts a lot of value and emphasis on things like matchups and team-ups. Team-ups like Yuji and Todo would not work if the character was too strong. It doesn't matter if you throw 100 Gokus at Whis, they're still gonna lose. Why am I mentioning this? Well, Hanami gets clapped up, never to be seen again. Using power scaling, we can take post Shibuya Yuji and reasonably scale him to a much higher level than Goodwill, and at this point, you could logically have him fight Hanami right now as he is, and you could say that he wins. But the story just isn't structured like that. Minor spoiler warning for non-manga readers, I will be using very, very vague names. I won't show the panels, but if you want absolutely nothing, skip ahead in this point in the video. Should be somewhere on the screen. In Sakurajima, Noritoshi Kamo fights a special grade curse spirit who is incredibly fast. During the fight, Kamo makes an observation that the curse spirit is faster than anything he'd ever seen. However, when describing its durability, he says that it is referable to that of Hanami. What does this mean? It means that even 100 chapters later, a disaster curse is still comparable to a new and shiny Pokemon that by all logic in other shonen should be way stronger.
Come on now, bro. Come on now. I don't know if I see what you're saying, but just cause other anime don't reference, like, just cause a character doesn't reference, oh, this character is on the same level in this terms, in this specific area as this old person that I fought, doesn't mean that it's non-existent. It doesn't mean that it's non-existent at all. Like, you can take that same information based on some type of fights. Like, for example, I have a perfect example here, right? When Gar fights Rock Lee, right? It's already shown when Rock Lee fights Sasuke that Rock Lee is faster than Sasuke, right? That's already established. Now you have Gar versus Rock Lee, and Rock Lee is moving on Gar, but he loses, right? Then Gaara fights Sasuke, and Sasuke is moving faster than Gaara can keep up, almost the same as Rock Lee could, right? And he beats Gaara because his Chidori is so fast. Using that information, Gaara doesn't have to say, "Oh, Sasuke, Sasuke is just as fast as Rock Lee." You can come to that conclusion. Now, yes, it's the same arc, but there are many shows that do things like that with arcs spread across. Right, so don't just give this specifically to JJK. This may not be as common as, I don't know how many times this happened in JJK, but it's not as common, it's not as rare as you think it is. It happens, bro. It definitely happens.
The fact that Gege considers Hanami even worthy of comparison is what's important. He doesn't have Kamo say that Hanami is a step below the cursed spirit, or Hanami is stronger, weaker, whatever. He simply compares and contrasts two different stats, which means that they are in that same relative tier. I think this is...
I mean, but didn't he just... But I could be wrong, because I was listening, but I wasn't kind of listening at the same time. But did he not just say it was in terms of speed? Just because, like, they're the same in terms of speed, the other curse could outweigh that person in multiple different other places. They're just the same in that specific attribute. So that curse could be tiers above that other character. It's just one thing that he noticed that they share in common, that one specific element. Now, if I'm wrong and he didn't say speed, take everything I just said and throw it out the window. But if he said speed...
This is a clear indication from Gege that he does not want to scale up his verse because he realizes it would cause issues that other manga like...
Bro, what? How did you get to that conclusion? How did you get there?
Like Dragon Ball and even Naruto have had. It makes more sense to have this cursed spirit be relative or even downright less durable than the likes of Hanami than to upscale the verse itself. Kamo has gotten a little stronger, but he still struggles against this curse the exact same way he did against Hanami. This makes much more sense than having him pull out some, unnatural...
I mean, bro, this is the problem. This is the problem that I'm having with what you're saying here. You're saying a character that hasn't gotten stronger in any metric, right? If characters in JJK don't get much stronger, then of course they won't need to power scale. When you compare that show to like a show like Naruto, right? Where Naruto goes through a whole training arc, they can't put the same tier character that he just fought and defeated. Of course, it has to get power scaled. The next person has to be stronger. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, am I missing something? Like, good for Gege that he doesn't want his characters to get stronger. From basically what you just said. You said that. But just because other shows want their characters to improve and become stronger and transform and do all these other things, like, there's nothing wrong with that, bro. If that's the reason why you don't like power scaling, bro, like, I don't know what to tell you, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Natural growth from his ass in a series where 80% of your strength and potential is decided at birth. This is logical and it follows the story that Gege has set out. Also, before we quickly move on, this cursed spirit's fastest attack is Mach 3. An attack that a super duper strong character who's also incredibly fast is unable to block at this point in the series because Mach 3 is just too fast for them. However, using power scaling, we can go back all the way to Goodwill and take a character like Maki, who is a lot weaker at this point, and see her catch a bullet mid-air when it's like centimeters from her face. I'm pretty sure if you calc this, it is like actually in the, like, I don't know, I think it's genuinely Mach 400. And that is a insane speed feat, yet they top at Mach 3. How does that make sense? Well, it doesn't, because even Gege says it was a little much having her catch that bullet. I think this shows that he does have a more concrete vision for the strength of his verse, and in the moment he's thinking about what's cool rather than what logically makes the most sense. Nobito is stated to be the fastest sorcerer. Dogon comments on his speed and even says he's...
So, I mean, I want to know why you're using JJK as a sample, and then you say things like that. If JJK is the... I don't know if you're using JJK to prove the point why you hate power scaling, or if you're using it to prove the opposite. I dead can't tell right now. I don't know where your stance is. I know what you're saying, but I can't tell where your stance is on this state on JJK and on power scaling as all. Besides from the title, you have not said anything to highlight your stance here.
Probably faster than Jogo. And prior to his death, the narrator tells us that he is the fastest sorcerer. However, that was when he had both of his arms. These statements are this specific for a reason. And to me, it's clear that Gege puts a lot of thought into keeping these characters in these relative categories, because what he values is interesting fights where handicaps and matchups play a much more vital role. Here, he writes that Jogo is only technically stronger than Hanami, not due to speed or strength, but rather the matchup of the techniques. Fire beats grass, Pokemon style. In your standard shonen, you'd expect the big bad villains to just be leagues above everyone else. And while Sukuna fits that bill, Fate Geto in the fanbook is stated to have had trouble if he were to fight Mahito or Jogo, even though he is the central villain of the series. This is just another way in which Gege is trying to write a more non-standard shonen, and this is why I don't think power scaling really applies in this sort of sense. Jujutsu Kaisen just doesn't structure his power system that way. It's more akin to Hunter x Hunter, where weaker characters can compete with stronger ones as long as their abilities have a favorable interaction.
Like, come on, bro. Like, come on, bro. Like, this is not just a JJK Hunter x Hunter thing. Like, is that their bread and butter? Absolutely. But other shonens do the exact same thing. Like, what are we talking about? Like, are you just saying that every other shonen, the characters only win fights and lose fights because of their power? It's not because of the matchup? Bro, come on, bro. Like, you gotta be losing me here. We understand that's JJK's bread and butter because the author is everywhere with his power scaling. But like other anime do the exact same thing in plenty of fights throughout their shows.
I think Yuji's a prime example of this, and I'm going to use Pokemon terms to describe this. If Yuji were a normal fighting type Pokemon, Mahito would be a ghost type Pokemon with 3 ghost type moves and 1 dark type move. Effectively, he only has 1 move that he can do damage to Yuji with, that being the dark type move, but that dark type move just is not effective. It does reduced damage. So even though he outlevels Yuji by 10 to 15 levels, when he can't use Idle Transfiguration and by extension his domain, well, a big part of what makes Mahito so strong and threatening just completely gets thrown out the window.
But here's my problem with that statement, right? Take anybody in JJK, right? Take anybody, right? Is that not pretty much the same thing? If Mahito can't use those 2 things, is it not a more even fight? Do you not see what I'm saying here? Like, that statement makes 1,000,000% sense that you just made. Yes. But that same statement you could use for almost any character in the show. Like, if Mahito doesn't have his 2 most terrorizing moves, almost anyone could compete with him. Not almost, but a lot of people in the show could still compete with him at the same level that Yuji is. Like, come on, bro.
I'm pretty confident in this analogy because Gege has talked about creating some of these characters based off of Pokemon, but also, as we showed earlier, deciding which one is stronger because of sort of that Pokemon analogy. If I had to include Sukuna and Gojo in this analogy, I guess it would be something like this. Sukuna and Gojo are level 100 legendaries that brute force everything regardless of matchup, either through pure just stats or abilities that no one can counter no matter what their typing is. This isn't even unique to JJK. In Dragon Ball, people have been able to logically scale Goku above Beerus ever since the Universe 6 arc. Yet, somehow after every single arc, Beerus is casually beating both Goku and Vegeta and still telling them, you know what guys, you're thousands of years too early to surpass me. The narrative requires Beerus to be this strong, so he's gonna be stronger than the 2 of them up until the very end of the series. People get mad at this and say that Dragon Ball is inconsistent or that Beerus is probably trading in secret and the goalpost is just ever moving. We essentially have to make up a lot of headcanon for this line of reasoning to work and make sense, and sorry.
This is where, if you had a problem with power scaling, this will be the problem. And it wouldn't be power scaling, it would be the community. because in a show like Dragon Ball, with a character like Beerus, who we've only seen fight, I swear I might be wrong, but we only seen him fight a singular time, like in a actual fight. We only seen him fight a singular time, where I'm pretty sure he said that he was not even trying nowhere close to he wasn't even trying to his max potential. So like how can people logically come up with reasons that he would be stronger when we don't even know all of his feats, when we don't even know how strong he truly is? So if there's a problem that you have with power scaling, it's the community. You're talking about a character that literally has fought a singular time to an extent that we don't know how much of power he used. It's never been stated, it's never been shown. Like, come on, bro. That's the problem. If you have a problem with anything, that should be the problem.
But some of these authors just do not care. So why is any of this important? I mean, it isn't. Go outside, touch some grass, do something else. You're watching a video about grown-ass man telling you which cartoon character is stronger than another one. Oh god, I'm the one making the video. I think it's important because a lot of discussion around characters inevitably devolves into the my dad can beat up your dad trope. Instead of discussing the actual character in character, Jogo being weaker than Toji somehow makes Jogo a lesser character. Ultimately, a lot of these inter-series discussions are also based on flawed logic that contradicts what the author himself is telling you. Beyond that, JJK is an ongoing series where things can change every single chapter, completely uprooting previous conclusions. I enjoy the occasional power scaling video, I just don't like how it's done in regards to Jujutsu Kaisen. But my opinion can always change, so let me know in the comments what you think. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.
So it was a JJK problem that he has. I think power scaling in between shows to certain levels, some of the debates and conversations that are had are ridiculous. Like, this character isn't beating this character no matter what logical conclusion you come to. But like when you come between different series, then there's a place for it. There's a place for it. Like you can only use what is in the show. So I mean, good video nonetheless. Good video nonetheless. So you like the video? You'll like this one too. Go ahead and click on that. Yeah. You're still here? So you don't fuck with me? Alright, I'ma just